drink 1 liter of oil, not more, not less. Those of you who have to get some beans and some rice, some posho that has to be measured in grams, you see those weighing scales that and the stones that they use, that's really the science of metrology. If it is a liter of fuel, well, that pump there does more than meets the eye. It measures how much fuel you get at the price you've been told, and it must be accurately the liters of fuel that you have paid for. When a trader is selling 1 kilogram of sugar or maize flour, metrology ensures that the scale is fair and not manipulated. Even in construction, actually, metrology is functional there, measuring the lengths, the weights, the materials, and correctly measuring them for safety. And then there's also the element of road. So metrology is all over the place. It is all around us. In essence, it is the hidden system that protects fairness, safety, and trust in almost every transaction and service. And so we are speaking to this important subject with Engineer James Kasigwa, the Executive Director of the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. This is the national body mandated to ensure quality, safety, and fairness in goods and services across Uganda do meet the Ugandan standards. Engineer James, you're most welcome and good morning to you.
Good morning, Priscilla. Very glad to be here. And I think you've made my job very easy.
Oh, yes.
In elaborating what metrology is.
But is there something that I've missed out?
I can tell you, you need the entire day to really explain how deep and how important metrology is. But maybe first and foremost, what it is. It simply means the measurement, the science of measurements. Making sure that a liter is a liter, and a liter in Uganda is the same liter in the entire world. Kilogram, that goes for all sorts of measurements.
Why is it important that we bring the conversation of metrology to the forefront?
It is important that, first of all, I state that metrology is the foundation of civilization, human progression, and development world over. If I take you a little while back, the ancient Egypt, they used metrology for civilization to inform their tax policies. They had meters, measurements like the Nilometer, where they measured the level of the Nile waters on the river Nile to inform the tax policy. Because every time the Nile would, the river would increase, it would mean that they would have enough water to irrigate bigger chunks of land, and there the government would have to tax more to the calendar, the ancient Egypt. So fast forward to the pyramids. Now, like you said, metrology is very important in everyday life, in the trade. Downtown today, as we speak, people are exchanging value through what they are selling. Is it a liter of fuel? Is it a liter of a kilo of sugar, meat, name it? But even then, metrology is in every sector. That is agriculture. In health and safety, when you talk about diagnostics, I think where most developing economies actually get it wrong is at the diagnostics. And they are all applying metrology. The body temperature, the triage. You go to a hospital, the first thing they test, they check your temperature, they check your pressure and weight to inform a doctor on what is. If you get it wrong at that point, then the doctor is misled. Later on into the treatment, whatever treatment is given to you is in either milligrams or the amount of radiation to treat the cancer. So it is very important. In the infrastructure space, you talked about roads. The roads are designed to hold certain weights, the axle weight. And you must actually measure so that our roads are sustainable. This goes into utilities. I believe we all want electricity in our homes, and we are billed for every unit we use. But is your meter measuring the right amount, or your billing billed? Talk about
yeah,
water.
We've had those complaints that
talk about
I
oil
pay
and
for
gas.
this much, but I'm getting less than what I have been getting previously. Yeah,
absolutely. So metrology ensures consumer protection, fair trade, and it is as old as mankind. In the Bible or the Quran, they talk about fair. It is very elaborate in those. So it is very important. So this year and every year, every May 20th, we celebrate what we call the World Meteorology Day. Now, in these parts of the world, it's amazing to find that Valentine's Day is more known than, for example, meteorology. When you say meteorology, Priscilla, very many people will think about the weather. But it is actually much more than the weather. It is the science of what? Measurements. And this year's theme of the World Meteorology Day, we are saying that we need to build trust in policy making. Why? From time immemorial, science and data has been informing what? Policies. I told you about the Egyptians and their Nirometer. So we need now to begin holding policymakers accountable to ensure that the policies are informed by data, by measurements. If you're talking about oil and gas, it had to take a measurement study, seismic studies, to establish how much oil resource we have as a country. And then today we are celebrating that we are about to get the first oil out of the what? The ground. But meteorology does not also stop at establishing the resource, let alone on managing the resource. You have the oil. Are you metering that every barrel of oil out of the ground is what is being sold? Or you're getting 5 barrels but accounting for what? Only 3. That's called metering. So meteorology is such an important thing that I believe that as a country we need to begin aligning our policies into what we call, to go into, to demand that policies and regulations actually refer standards or are data driven.
Okay. On that note, you said the theme is building trust in policy making. Yep. This is why I want to beg the question. For the case of Uganda, what has actually led to the brokenness in trust through measurement of science? Yes. And what sectors have been most affected by this broken trust?
Actually, the broken trust in science, I don't know how far back it goes, because when you say meteorology, first of all, I don't know how many Ugandans will understand what you're talking about. Now, we as a society, I don't think we've been socialized to trust and believe in science and measurements. Why? Because even if you have our natural resources, if you cannot quantify them properly, you cannot manage or control them. I think there is a scholar, a Nobel Peace Prize winner called Lord Kelvin, who said you can only know and control what you're able to measure. Even I think Peter Drucker in management says that what you can't measure, you can't control. So in all sectors, I see challenges where the solutions are measurements. I'll give you an agricultural example. I think our president once was talking about a man called Louis Pasteur, who established that you can actually extend the shelf life of milk by simply heating it at a high temperature for a certain period, short period. Actually, it is high temperature, short time. And that has revolutionized the preservation of milk and the dairy industry. And to that extent, even we talk about aflatoxins. Aflatoxins, these are toxins that are brought about by molds, okay? In cereals, we are an agricultural economy. But statistics show that we are losing 30 to 40% in post-harvest handling of our produce. And largely for cereals, it's aflatoxins. But the solution is as simple as ensuring that every farmer gets what we call a moisture gauge. Very affordable. You know that at a certain moisture, then you're going to incur losses. Mm-hmm. Actually, we did a drive to sensitize farmers, and actually the statistics show that just by creating awareness, that actually if you measure the moisture content in your harvest, then you can actually preserve it. So and as we aspire to grow our economy tenfold, I think science and the science of measurement is going to be part of the critical solutions.
As an institutional leader, what are some of those reform recommendations that you have on table that could improve metrology, later on improving the trust of it for the people?
Yes. UNBS, Uganda National Bureau of Standards, is what we call the National Metrology Institute, the highest body in any economy that is responsible for ensuring that the metrology is first of all trustworthy and traceable globally. That a kilo is a kilo here as it is in London and France. So as an economy now where we are, we have a huge opportunity in our population. 80%, 85% of our population are youth. That means they are teachable, they are trainable. Now, first of all, one of the reforms that we need to do is create awareness. Awareness that actually science works and data and measurements are very important for economic progression. And we take this awareness into academia and we teach the science of measurements. It's very important. I am trained as an engineer. One scenario is we far back some 20, 25 years ago, as an engineering student in the lab, we have those instruments called CROs, cathode ray oscilloscopes. And they are used to test the analysis, to analyze an electric signal. But they had been out of calibration. They were not measuring very well. So all the experiments that we did on those CROs would give you a false result. To get the experiment right, you would have to get results of some 5, 10 years ago and inform your report. If you went to go by what the CRO was giving you at the time, you would surely fail the experiment. But Priscilla, what does that mean? That is the case today in even our health, some of our health facilities. You will go in there and they measure your temperature and pressure, and the machine gives
that's
a
very
wrong
true. I've
result.
had that experience. My mother had to go in for a checkup, and she had to use a machine, and it gave false results that then meant she needed to be gotten onto dialysis as soon as possible. But it was wrong information that was leading to a wrong diagnosis. On that note, as we're observing World Metrology Day, you are having a dialogue, and we want to know why the dialogue, who is it intended to bring on board, who are the different stakeholders, what is it intended to address for the next 365 days, so that when you and I are seated here next time, same day, we are actually having results that were out of the continuous engagements that you've been doing as UNBS.
Yes, so as UNBS, first of all, is to assure the country that we have adequate infrastructure, laboratories to support all MDAs and institutions. Hospitals have all these diagnostic equipment. As UNBS, we calibrate them. They should bring their diagnostic equipment to our laboratories at UNBS so that we stop misdiagnosing. Priscilla, that will actually create a huge impact on our economy, health of our population. When you talk about oil and gas, we are talking about the fast oil. We must actually calibrate those meters. So what we are trying to say, to create awareness that actually the policies and regulations that we are making should be informed by standards, data, and measurements. And also to call upon our universities to start courses in measuring and metering sciences. I think that is something that we need to begin discussing with policymakers.
Your closing remarks.
My closing remarks.
Yes.
I wanted to highlight 2 statistics, one in the US and one in Europe, that for every dollar invested in metrology sciences, United States recoups in economic value $47. In Europe, for every €1 invested in the economy in metrology sciences measurements, they recoup 50 to 67 euros. So Uganda and other developing countries must learn to invest in metering and measuring services for economic development and human progression.
Engineer Kasigwa, thank you so much for sitting down with us and bringing us to light with how metrology is all around us and actually influences our everyday life, something that we must be observant of. The other thing that is influencing our everyday life right now is the stench of corruption. We might be looking at some of the top offices in government, but even across the bar, all around ourselves, the systems that have actually been created or created themselves to harness and encourage corruption. How do we deal with those? Well, some of the ministries, such as the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, has a mandate to look through that and do the checks and balances. They are opening up offices in Lira district as of today, and we want to hear from its leadership on how they are actually positioned